Welcome to Soulful. Whether you're navigating challenges or celebrating victories,
We're here to remind you that every step on your path is meaningful. I'm Tiff,
and I'm Jess.
so let's clear our mind as we fill our soul.
Hey everyone. So welcome back to another episode of Soulful. I'm Jess, and as always, I'm here with Tiff.
Hello.
And yeah, it is another beautiful day to have a beautiful day. So yeah, Tiff, what's up? How's life? How are you? What's the 411?
Oh, the 411 is like a list that's longer than I am tall. No, I was already Jess and I had a quick catch up before jumping on, and I told her I was like very proud to show my bare arm. So here it is.
In all its glory.
In all its glory, the cast is gone. You've heard me complain about it for about 3 episodes now, but the cast is gone. So that I think is my biggest highlight, and feeling very grateful, and also just marveling. Like I texted my mom, I was like, "Man, bodies are cool." When I looked at the X-ray, and he was like, "Look at all the new bone formation in your wrist," and I was like, wow. Like, I don't know, just to see it in full sight, I'm like, it's so cool that I mean, I know it heals itself, but just to see that visual, it was like, it was just shy of 6 weeks. And I'm like, my body knew how to fix that bone, like,
Yeah.
all on its own. I didn't have to do anything. So, that's that's like my biggest news. I think that's the most important thing to me. Otherwise, I'm just quite busy and not bad busy. Like, I actually have quite an influx of energy. I don't know about you, but like when spring approaches, I get like all I come in, I feel like I'm the bear coming out of the cave. I'm like no longer in hibernation. So, yeah, just roll them with the energy. And I believe it's daylight savings on the weekend or it's soon.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's soon. Yeah.
Yeah. I read it was this weekend, but I didn't fact check that. So, anyway.
Yeah, I think so. It's funny because excuse me, my sister was like, "Oh, it's daylight savings time and this time I like lose an hour of sleep." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, I lose my seasonal depression, so I'm here for it." Uh
So true. I can gain that hour back elsewhere, but
yeah.
yeah, more daylight is two thumbs up. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's funny.
funny.
Like I do love winter. Like winter's probably like is my favorite season, but like these longer days have like really been like a really welcome sight. So I think I feel some of that energy as well.
What level of frigidness are you at now where you are?
I think it's actually been quite warm. Like I think we
Okay.
even went above temperature yesterday in a couple of days. Yeah, we're sitting at like +2 right now. So it is supposed to get a little bit cooler. Like this is what we call Fool's Spring here in
Yes.
the north. So we are going to get more snow and it is going to get quite cooler, but I'll soak up the few extra days of lots of sunlight and warmer temps. And Nova really likes it too, because her paws don't get cold when we go outside for a walk.
Does she have those like little boots?
Yeah,
Does she... I love
yeah.
when I see dogs wearing those little boots. It's so cute.
She hates them. Yeah, she hates them. The dog walker always tells like us, like we have these little report cards or whatever when the dog walker comes in and brings her outside when like I'm away or working or whatever. And they're always like, "Oh, Nova's so great, like getting her boots on," and and I'm like, I don't share that experience. Actually.
So she's like a child, the child goes out and isn't care. Someone like, your kid is so great and well behaved, and it's like, I don't think that's the same child. I think they've transitioned somewhere.
Talking with the same dog person? Okay. Yeah. So, anyways.
That's cute. What about you? What's the down low in your life this week?
Mm, yeah, like I guess yeah, things have certainly not gotten any less chaotic for me, I guess. But yeah, just sitting in gratitude despite all of the chaos. So just really happy for that. I think that's like a small win is like being able to maintain grateful despite all that. So I have also been able to connect with like unexpectedly connect, I guess, with like really like awesome like people professionally and personally. So that also feels good. Yeah, like just recognizing the support and connection, I guess, when I have that, like things feel more manageable, I guess. So,
Mm.
um, yeah, but I
Mm-hmm.
guess I certainly won't discredit my effort in the mindset of like, yeah, things will be, what they'll be, but I do think that that helps a little bit. So,
Right. Like that strength in, well, strength in numbers, but strength in community, that strength of
yeah,
people that help hold us. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So, yeah,
Yeah.
more to come on that. Um, so I guess as I guess I alluded to, when there are lots of moving pieces in my life, I do keep, I guess, trying to like remind myself to navigate it in the best way that I know how in that moment, right? So
Mm.
sometimes I do a really good job at that, and other times, I could do better. But one thing that I have been thinking a lot about is I guess how I show up in like challenging, maybe not challenging situations, but like challenging conversations.
Mm.
And so I think that kind of led me to think more about like conflict. And I think that is a part of, yeah, I think that is a part of life, right? It's a part of journeys. It's inevitable. So
Yeah.
I know we hear a lot about conflict resolution and communication, probably more so in those more challenging moments, I guess. So, yeah, so it really sparked a little bit of thought and reflection for me. So I'm hoping that's what we can dig into a little bit here today. And so I think we do find ourselves in moments of of conflict, right? Or
Yeah.
having to assert ourselves in some ways, and sometimes that could be hard for us. So not everyone is going to say the things the way that I do, unfortunately. But when I think about it's mostly a joke. But when I think,
90%. Yeah.
yeah, mostly a joke. But yeah, like I was thinking about it that when I am presented with like these opposing like opinions or perspectives, like I do find that it is what teaches me the most or where I learn really important and valuable lessons. And I definitely don't see that in the moment when as it's unfolding. But yeah, they say hindsight is 2020. So
Yeah.
I think I did spend a lot of my life like trying to make myself heard or seen or acknowledged. And I think I now know that's like I didn't offer those things to myself. But anyways, it left me
Right.
thinking like how did that contribute or how does it still contribute to conflict in our relationships? And as always, I mean relationships like partners, parents, friends, coworkers, the boogeyman, like I don't know, but like how do our
Don't
values
invite the boogeyman over, please.
sometimes I feel like metaphorically I live with the boogeyman, not physically, but metaphorically, I feel like. But yeah, like how do our values, I guess, like for me, feeling appreciated, for example, leads to conflict in relationships. And I guess like how does it impact our relationships? And I think we'll get to like those things a little bit later. But so for now, I guess what I'd like to ask or what I'd like to throw out there for you is like any kind of thoughts that you have on conflict, like what it is, where it might come from, like, yeah, just any like really initial thoughts, I guess, that you have on conflict.
Hmm. Yeah, when you said the thing about, yeah, sometimes you did it a lot to be like seen, heard, or valued. I'm not sure if valued you used, but seen or heard. Yeah, I think I think that really tracks for sure. It's like a silent driver of the bus, so to speak. It's
Yeah.
like, unless we tune into it. But I think when I think about conflict, the initial thing that comes up for me is like a physical body response too, honestly. It's like, no. Like, no, it's like a
Yeah.
war. It's like I want to avoid it at all costs. Um, Even though most of my life I didn't avoid conflict, I was very I'm gonna call a spade a spade. Like I was bossy, and like if I didn't get my way in certain ways, I found other ways to try to get my way in something. So like there could be a conflict in front of me, and I'm like, no, I'm just gonna like find a way to drive around that, and I'm gonna still, try to find a way to meet my own needs. But conflict, Conflict to me used to be very chaotic. It used to be stressful. It used to mean alone,
Mm,
being left alone. It used to mean unsafety, lack of safety. I think that's probably the biggest thing. It meant lack of safety. And as I healed and I learned, honestly, it started with a lot of it started with learning nonviolent crisis intervention. It's all about
mm,
communication skills and like
yeah.
de-escalation and things like that. It really opened my eyes to the power of how our body is in position to another person, like how our tone of voice impacts things, our stance, like just so many things. And how to lean into like the feelings that are often behind the words or the things that are going on beyond it. And it gave me some like sense of like I guess that's safety in my body. It's like, okay, this isn't something to fear and to avoid or to run from or anything like that. It's like it's to lean in. I feel like a lot of times there's a missing of understanding or a
Mm,
disconnection happening or something along those lines. So I think for me, at the bottom of it is like, yeah, maybe it's a disagreement or maybe it's a different way of seeing things or maybe it's a lack of understanding or something like that. But it's really shifted from chaotic, turbulent war to like, what don't I understand here? You know, or where can I lean in here? If I don't know if that's clear, but yeah, I feel like it's evolved as I have, I think is what I want to say.
yeah, like I think that makes a lot of sense. And thanks for sharing that. There was like, oh, there was a few things actually that was like, yeah, like it sparked some ideas. So I think the first is when you talked about like a physical response. Like I think that's so true, right? Like, because sometimes we think like we don't pay enough attention to like our body's response to things. Yeah, so I just really appreciate that insight too, because I think I feel my body sometimes, but I don't always tune into what it's trying
Mm,
to like tell me. So that's been something that I've been practicing and trying to do more of. And I love also hearing like a shift in like what it means to you now versus like what it used to mean. So yeah, I think we'll get more like into that as well, because I think that's really interesting.
mm,
um so I think like when we do hear conflict and like just like you like alluded to, but like yeah, our backs kind of go up a bit, right? And like we perceive it as like this bad thing. Anyway, so I got really curious about the actual definition. So
okay.
I hear conflict all the time, like especially in the work that I do, in counseling. Like we talk about conflict a lot, and I was like, I wonder, like this is my interpretation of what conflict is. But, like, what does it actually like? What's it defined as? And so I did look it up, and there was two different things that I noted. The first was that it's like a serious disagreement or a serious argument.
Okay.
And then the second one was like, I guess you know how they do like the noun and then the verb. The verb one was to be incompatible or to
Hmm.
clash. So I got to thinking about then, because like I said, this has definitely been a theme lately for me, like kind of navigating through some of this stuff. So I got to thinking of like what is the impact of us viewing conflict as yeah serious, which is like how it's defined, or
Yeah.
as incompatibility. And so I just think incompatibility is just a very interesting topic, like concept anyways. And so I've been thinking also a lot about that. I don't know, maybe it'll be like a future episode, but like because we have conflict with something or some parts of something or someone, and I think about things like policies or a situation or event. Like it doesn't always have to be a person that we have conflict with, right?
For sure.
So like does it make it serious for one if we have differing opinion or belief, I guess? Or does it mean that like if it's with a person that like we're incompatible? So I guess yeah, I have some thoughts about that because I've had a chance to think about it, but I'd like to hear what you think about those things.
Well, I think the second, yeah, when you said the word serious, first of all, I was like, that immediately puts like a tone on it, you know, that I'm not sure it needs to be there. Because I don't even know if I agree if all conflict is serious. I mean, I think I created a lot of conflict in my need for some chaos when I was younger, so I can't say that that was serious.
Hmm.
So anyway, just thinking about that. But incompatibility, like I don't know. I don't know. When I hear that, you know what? I want to hear your thoughts. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, like I think, yeah, it was something that, like I said, I did think about because I was like, if this is how it's defined and this is my interpretation of it, like not saying, but anyways, I guess for me, yeah, I don't know if I believe that to be true. Like I don't know that I believe
Yeah,
that to be true. Um, and yeah, I guess I'm not about to have it out with like Webster or anything, but like
Miriam's. Yeah,
yeah, about their definitions. But like I just really did start thinking about this whole concept of like conflict and meaning incompatibility because the truth is that I will have different perspectives, right? Like that's just a fact. And
yeah,
we could call them conflicts, sure. But I don't believe that is a reason for me to call it like incompatibility or even for it to lead to like a serious argument or like a serious disagreement.
yeah,
Yeah, like I think
yeah,
yeah, I think there was a time when I thought that, and I think you kind of alluded to that as well, but like there was a time when I thought conflict was about fighting, right? Like it was about like fighting, whether that was emotionally, physically, whatever. Um, being emotionally charged or, like hanging on to like a grudge just like for way too long, but I'm not so sure also about that anymore, right? Like I don't think that's what it means to anymore, but I do think sometimes it leads to um I guess it can lead to that, and then also sometimes it is serious, but then
yeah.
also like it's not. So yeah.
Yeah. I think leaving it open to say that it can be serious, because, yeah, it can be. Sometimes conflict can have some serious implications. Like, I'm
Mhm.
not going to get political, but the division that we see in the world right now, that's having some serious implications. It doesn't have to, but it is.
Mhm.
Um, and like I said, we're not here to talk politics, so I'll leave all that away from it. But yeah, so I think it can be, but to say that it must be, I feel like, or that is the defining definition, I feel like that's misleading.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, like especially because then we see or hear things like that, and then if we like don't feel that way, sometimes we're like, well, should I feel that way? And then that could also lead to more conflict, right? We talk about comparisons, we talk about all of those things, right? So it's kind of
yeah,
it's a very similar like idea, I think. Um, so yeah, like I think we agree some conflict or opposing perspectives, opinions, or beliefs, whatever, like it's inevitable. So, yeah, I guess I would like to go back and hear more about how you think like self awareness, healing, or not healing our own stuff can play a part in these conflicts.
yeah. Well, I think I'd like to know what the statistics are, to be quite honest, of like the amount of people who know how to regulate their nervous systems.
Mm.
Because I mean, it's a skill that needs to be learned. It's not
Mhm.
I unless you grow up in a super safe, emotionally intelligent and aware environment.
Yeah.
And I just think I don't know, maybe we're moving more towards that in the newer generations of people. I don't know. I haven't fact checked any of that, but what I do know is that I come across lots of people that I'm watching fight, flight, and freeze play out, which is natural. That is our natural way to like kind of, we come to conflict. And as soon as you see the fighter, it's like my initial thing is like to back down and run away if there's somebody that feels bigger and scarier.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think so. Okay, your question was healing and like how does some of that play into conflict? Am
Yeah.
I summing that up? Yeah. I think the self-awareness piece is key because if I reflect back, so I'm going to talk from my personal journey because that always feels like the safest place. It's my truth.
Yeah.
Um, when I was younger and I had a lot of conflict within myself, I had a lot of warring parts. Like for those that are familiar with internal family systems, like parts work of like, I had things within me not on the same pages. And I also had a lot of well, a lack of awareness, a lack of consciousness, like conscious awareness around the ways that I was showing up to things, which again is normal. And if we don't take a journey within and look at those things, so I just want to validate that that's also, I'm not shaming it.
Yeah.
Um, but as I started to look within and look at some of those pieces, especially around nervous system regulation and, you know, how you use the word emotionally charged, and I love that. I've called it emotional reactivity, but like emotional charge. Yeah, like I am for anyone who knows me, like I'm a feelings girl, okay? Like I am feelings first, logic comes at a hard second.
What you
And
are?
like deep in the feels often, and that's okay. That's just my makeup. But that I had to really learn how to not jump when I had this charge of emotion. Like
Mm.
learn how to settle a lot of those like big things in myself. And of course, the conflict was always the highest for me with people that were closest to me because it's like, yeah, you know all the right buttons to push in me. It's like the siblings or, or as I aged my ex-husband or, my friends I didn't really worry about that as much because, we're not necessarily out trying to poke each other's buttons on purpose if we're good friends. But yeah, those people that are closest to me, like that sets off that response more and more and more. And I think healing plays a big role into it because when those buttons get pushed of like, I want to uh duke it out with you right now in whatever way that looks like. I'm not actually mean physical fighting, but like words and defensiveness or like, whatever that looks like, learning, we've talked about this in previous episodes, but like learning that pause to be like, why am I so reactive right now?
Yeah.
And like learning to come back to it so that it could be done in a way where I'm not like tearing someone down. And because I know like if my fight got triggered when I was younger, I would feel immense remorse after for all the stuff I did and said. It's like look at and so then it was like a cycle almost with shame too, because it's like what is wrong with you? Like, why did you have to hit below the belt? Like, and I know conflict can be so much more than that. But like you said, when I was younger, I did associate conflict with fighting. Like, that is what it meant for me. Um, and yeah, as I heal, it really means what am I not understanding? What is really going on here? Like what is being communicated that's not being communicated? Because a lot of the time we're not saying what we actually mean and maybe not even intentionally,
Yeah.
you know? So I think as I healed, and as I healed a lot of that, I talked about this and I didn't really go back to it, but like as I healed myself, I was less at war with myself. And then that kind of turned into my external reality too. It's like, okay, well, I'm not in so much inner turmoil and conflict and war. So I have more peace, I have more regulation, I have more calm. And that translates outward into my relationships and my dynamics. So I do think it still all starts within. I do always come back to that. But yeah. So I think I answered your question, but I just kind of took a lot of squirrel journeys around there. So
Yeah, no, I think that was, yeah, I think it was awesome. You definitely answered the question. And yeah, like just thanks for sharing too, like, your perspectives and kind of like some of the pieces, right, of like what your journeys look like. Because I think, yeah, I think we always say that, right? Like that's really important is for us to take the time to reflect, but also when we share, like it sparks like that's in other people, and that's what it did for me. So, and I do want to go back to like the feeling thing where I was like, "What you are," but it's like one of these things that I think that when we are when we are that kind of person, like when we have a lot of feelings or like I think reactivity was one of the words that you used, right? Like, and so I think that also comes like with this like negative kind of thing, and this like, oh, I think conflict is a part of it. Like sometimes we think people who have like high emotions or high feelings or whatever, like conflict, they're what is the word I'm looking for? Like a combative person or like all of these words that we use.
yeah.
And I actually think that that is like not true, but also I think that it allows us to reflect more on why we're feeling that way. Like if we take the time to do it, of course.
Yeah.
Because it's like our feelings come from somewhere, like you just said, right? Like it comes from somewhere. And so that's like a really big guide and teacher. So yeah, like it was a funny kind of like joke when I said that, but to know that that is who you are, like to know who we are, I think is important, especially when it comes to conflict. So yeah,
Yeah.
I just really like I think that that is something that I didn't think about before, is like how our feelings, I guess, or how we're connected to our feelings, I guess, is also means like how connected, yeah, to conflict or to feeling what's the underlying stuff there a little bit, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not sure if that makes sense, but anyways.
Yeah. Made sense to me.
Um, okay, so I guess one of the things that did the other thing that sparked up was like you're talking, it sounded what it sounded to me was like something's like communication. And so for me, I do come across barriers when I try to communicate effectively during conflict, especially conflict that is heavier and more challenging, but also like you had mentioned, that's like closer to me and like proximity, right?
Mm.
So I get real passionate is the word I like to use. But also, yeah, just heat it up sometimes, for sure. So I always try to lean on the things that I've learned about communication to really help, I guess, guide me like through that. So for knowing, like for me, I guess it's like about knowing I don't need to continue a conversation if I don't feel like I want to, or feel like I
Mm-hmm.
could, or feel like I can, or whatever. So like leaning into my autonomy to make that decision. And also now trusting myself enough to know what does feel good, right? And then honoring myself like when it doesn't. And so I guess I've also come to realize that if I'm having conflict with someone or something that I don't get to decide the outcome. Like,
Right.
so I think back, yeah, a long time ago now, but I would really avoid conflict actually. It's funny because there were parts of me that really enjoyed conflict, especially when it wasn't with me. Like I liked watching other people's conflict.
Get the popcorn.
Yeah, like a throwback to like my George Street days. Like, but there was also a point in time where I would really try to avoid it, and like at all costs. So I guess, yeah, anyway, so what I would avoid it in a healthy way though, I think is what I mean. So to the depths where it's like pure avoidance, because like I said, taking the time out, taking a step away, I think is important, but this
Yeah.
comes back to like readdressing it or revisiting it, and working through it. So, things like ending a conversation, usually out of spite or because I wasn't winning the conversation or I wasn't winning the conflict. I'm just keeping it real here. You guys just
Yeah,
real.
absolutely.
um,
My
yeah.
humanness.
Or because I guess I was like angry or whatever. And like I said, never readdressing it. Or I have also just pretended that something I felt conflicted about didn't happen or like that it didn't exist. And like I
Denial.
exactly, yeah, I would just pretend like, oh, that didn't even happen. And like I would convince myself that like it didn't happen. Like it's just crazy to think about. I think about how you were talking about like your body, like your bones healing itself, and also how our mind does things to keep us like protected or whatever, right? Like it's just, yeah, it's very interesting. So anyway, none of those things were helpful. um, and so I guess for you personally, or like what you've heard from others, or whatever, however you want to apply it, but like, how do you think that communication, I guess, plays? I'm not going to say the biggest role, but like it plays an important role in conflict, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I want to come back. What's coming up for me because I just like kind of touched on it, but also okay, I'm all excited here. Let me rewind. Love the realness that you shared because like how true is that? Like when you were like I ended it in spite. I'm like, been there. Um, yep, definitely been there. Or when you were like I wasn't winning the argument or whatever. Yeah. Anyway, I just want to relate back
Um,
to you and thanks for being real. But yeah, I want to go back to my work. So, like I've talked about it a little bit before, but I used to work in clinical mental health, and People were in there in mental health crisis. It was an acute crisis and detox where I worked. So coming off of substances too, which is really hard on the body and mind on its own, regardless of anything else going on. And how I approached it changed everything, Now, I shouldn't say that because there's one example, as I said, that there's something coming in my mind. There was one day I went in and this woman was clearly having the worst day of her life. And we had had a great conversation the day before. And then that day I went in and she was out for blood from me. She screamed my name down the hallway and she's like called me all kinds of derogatory things. And, I'm useless and all of this. And I think I didn't have the awareness at the time, but I think I was getting insight into her own dialogue to herself. I don't actually know, but I was just the place that all that frustration went that day.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, she was in the highest state I think that you could be in of alertness. So like there was not much communication I could do in that moment. I needed to walk away. So I think there are some times where we just need to distance ourselves depending on kind of what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if I'm being clear here, but the whole point I was trying to get to is that it made the biggest difference that if somebody was really heated and they were like, often the conflict wasn't with me in specific, but I was on the receiving end of the anger and the aggression with the system, with the doctors, with whatever was going on. I just sat down. So even body language communication. So I think communication could be a lot of things, but like I would sit down and I would be like, I would soften my tone. I would make safe eye contact. I wouldn't be like a threatening presence to them. And I think that would it made such a huge difference because immediately if I could stay in, I'm gone on to regulation now, but if I could stay in that regulation,
Mm-hmm.
then we could have a dialogue. But to bring it back to the communication piece, I think there's a lot of, I guess what I'm trying to get at is that there's a lot of layers of communication that are
Yeah.
important. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not just the verbal. It's not just like, I want to say these things. It's like, how am I saying it? How is my presence here right now? Where are they coming from? Like there's a lot of things to assess, which I get is hard in the moment if our own nervous system is firing alert and danger. But learning how to like breathe and kind of bring into that space, I think makes such a big difference in
Mm-hmm.
conflict resolution because it's like, I'm not here to win. I'm not here to fight
Right.
you. I'm here to understand. And so like I said, it's not just what I say to you. I think majority of it is actually for me and how I see it is a lot of how am I presenting myself in this situation and less about the words that I'm saying. But that is still a communication. I am still communicating my safety and my body to you in this moment so that we can come to a resolution that works or doesn't. I mean, it's going to, like you said, we can't control the outcome. But I know I kind of danced around there, but I do think, what's it called? Like nonverbal cues. Yeah,
Yeah.
nonverbal cues
Nonverbal.
is communication. And I think it makes a huge difference because often when people, I mean, conflict doesn't always have to come from a place of being charged, but when it is coming from a place of being charged, I think those nonverbal cues are like super important.
Yeah,
Um,
especially in like a high, like it seems to me like a high, like escalated kind of like situation, right? And it's funny
yeah,
because you were like sharing the experience of like how you kind of like navigated that, and you're like, and to get back to communication. And the whole time I was like, no, I think that's exactly what you were doing. It's like to communicate, well, you were communicating, right? Because
yeah,
it is so true. Like the way that we present ourselves, even like I think especially in those high, like escalated, like kind of situations, like if we can find that calmness, that kind of like communicate to ourselves like we're okay, we're like regulating our own stuff, it becomes easier for the other person to also like get to the same level, or kind of like bring them down a little bit as well.
yeah,
So I think that, yeah, I think that that's a really actually like really good example, and I think just a good reminder that communication looks there's so many layers to communication.
yeah.
um and I do think about like this defensive position that I get into sometimes. Like, I defend my thoughts and opinions like I'm in the NFL, man. Like, I'm in like a defense mode sometimes. And it it does create conflict, right? Like, and I think my defensive comes from something deeper than that. Like it comes from something different than, or something deeper than the surface level thing, right? That might be the tipping point, or it might be like the, you shake the bottle and it blows up kind of thing, right? We all talk
Right.
about. And so in the book, The Four Agreements, I know that you probably hear me talk about this book a lot, but
It's right there on the
yeah,
shelf.
it's an awesome book. And I was like reading it earlier with like through another job, but like there's a story, and I think it's in like the first, I can't remember, it's right at the beginning of the book, but it's a story basically about like this kid who's like singing a song, and their mom comes home from like a busy day, and she's like, shut up, your voice is ugly, right? Like there's a lot, it's nicer, and it's nicer in the book, it's like
Cliff
insightful, it's,
notes.
yeah, it's lovely, this is just exactly. But anyways, then it goes on to talk about like what actually was going on with mom for her to say that,
Right.
right? Like she came from a busy day, and like I said, whatever else is in the book, but like there's more stuff than just hearing her kids sing. And so I think about even like being at a restaurant, right? You're in a stressful week. The waitress brings a Diet Coke instead of a Diet Pepsi, and all you Pepsi peeps will get it. But maybe it leads to like a reaction, right? Like it's the one last thing that you're like, well, nothing can go right, and and it like brings up this conflict or whatever. And so, as much as bringing Pepsi or a Coke instead of Pepsi could be a crime, it's not about the Coke, like, so yeah, I do think it's important to voice the things that are important to me. But also it's like finding the balance of, yeah, reactions, but also find the balance of like, how do I voice this using good communication, kind of like bridging that.
Yeah.
So I guess like any thoughts on defensiveness, or like our stance on certain things, but also maybe how we can try to focus on the underlying issues that might be at hand without adding to the conflict. So I know you mentioned some of that nonverbal stuff, but I think like in another situation of like even someone like closer, maybe wasn't at work, maybe was, like in maybe a relationship or something that's in closer proximity. um how do we get at the underlying stuff without like adding fuel to the fire, essentially?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a great question. And I love what you brought up about like, you're going to defend. And it is important to speak our needs and to give voice to what's important to us.
Mhm.
But what I'm reminded of when you were sharing that, I watched a video and I could not tell you anything about who it was or whatever, but it was a psychologist. I was watching that this talk that he was giving around like relational issues or whatever. But anyway, he was talking about this defensiveness piece, and he was calling it our ambassadors at the front, and he said when the
Mhm.
ambassadors come online, there's nothing but nonsense coming out, but you sound great. you
Yeah.
sound you sound like you know what you're talking about, and really, he said quite literally, you're full of shit. And
Mhm.
and he said we get so far away from what's really going on because the ambassadors are like, let me make this diplomatic, let me show you all the ways that you are wrong and why my point is right, and why, and he said you see that very often in marriages. And I thought that's funny because I watched that video probably like, I don't know, 7 8 years ago, but it never left me because when that comes on, I'm like, oh, look at my ambassadors here today, they're here to play. It also makes it a bit light too, like it's like, but anyway, so I think also something that they teach in a lot of therapeutic models, or like when you go to early therapy or group therapy, they teach this thing called like the 90-10 rule or whatever, or I think it's 90-10 or maybe it's 80-20, I don't know, something like that. That if we're like in this like more heated space or need to defend, or emotionally charged as well, it is like 90% the past and only 10% to do with what's
Mm.
really in the
Okay.
present moment.
Yeah.
And I think these are again just awareness things that we can hold gently in our minds. But to get to your question, I think I don't know about other people, but I can't do that in the moment. I can't separate if my ambassadors are online, just so to speak, if my defenses are up and my walls are up, my guard is up, I'm not going to be able to access that deeper issue in the moment.
Mm.
Most likely, depending, I guess, depending on if I've had awareness on it before, or I think there are different factors that play there. But if it's brand new to me and I don't really know what's truly going on, I'm not going to get to that if I'm not regulated. Like, I just want to come back to regulation again, because
Um,
if I'm defending and I'm justifying and I'm in the moment of like, listen to me and I need to be heard, I'm not regulated.
yeah.
I'm operating from like a less, well, from my ambassador place. So I think taking time, like just even recognizing, wow, I'm being defensive again, and just like pausing, be like, I don't really know exactly what I'm upset about here right now. Can I have some time?
Yeah.
And then taking time to reflect on it, and however people want to do that, like journaling. I like to talk it out, so I like to then go and talk it out with somebody. Well, Jess is on the receiving end of this a lot of the time, but my long podcast voice notes to her, but like, well, this happened and I like need to process it out to be
Yeah.
like, and you've heard me on the voice notes of like, there it is. Oh,
Yeah.
that's actually the thing, or like, I had a different shift or perception shift. So yeah, I don't know. I just know for me, I can't do it in the moment unless it's something I've already had awareness on before, of like, oh, I don't feel heard right now. Like, this is something like, I just really don't feel heard right now, and that's important to me or whatever. And like, I can come back to that. But if it's something that is triggered that I haven't looked at, yeah, I need time. Does
Yeah.
that answer your question?
Yeah, it absolutely does. I think like because I can resonate with that too, like in terms of like what is the solution? There's like so many things. Like I'm even thinking about like compromise and like can all conflict be resolved? Like there's all of these things flying through my mind. And I know that we're really getting close to like the end of this episode. So I feel like there's like a part two for conflict or challenging conversations or whatever. But what I really appreciate, kind of what you shared was the ambassador thing. And like what struck for me was like, yeah, it seems like an ego place to come from, right? Like our ego is kind of at the front. And when we kind of lean into yeah, like the other parts of us, I guess, like um then the ambassador doesn't really have as much like control, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, I'm gonna have to. I think my ambassadors like work overtime sometimes to think about that.
Yeah. Well, awareness, right? Like,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, the ambassador feels more safe, I would imagine, for most people. I mean, does for me, than sometimes the heart vulnerable stuff when it's
yeah.
like really a soft and squishy place, or something that's been wounded or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, that's so true. Because again, like comes back to like this protection of self, right? So,
Yep.
um, yeah, I think, anyways, I think, yeah, like I said, maybe part two coming soon to a podcast near you. But I think this has been like an awesome conversation because yeah, it's very much is reflective of where I've been, where I am, and appreciative of the space. I know you mentioned like voice notes and things like that, but yeah, like talking out is really something that I like value a lot and appreciate a lot because until I'm like saying it out loud, I'm like, oh wow, that does sound crazy, or that does sound like I have some work to do here or whatever, right? So anyway, so if I was I'm gonna ask you one final kind of question, I guess. And um I would like to hear from you. What would be maybe one thing, or could be two things, or whatever, stuff, but something that's really important for you that you've learned about conflict or communication along your journey that like you still really like tap into or you still utilize?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I alluded to one already. Is like, I need time and space. We
Mhm.
talk about that pause here often, but it's so important. Like, things aren't as, I have a friend that tells me all the time, like, if it feels urgent, I need to check myself. Like,
Mm,
things aren't as urgent as they seem that they are sometimes. And yes, there are times where there is urgency in life that's like medical matter or, whatever. Not saying that urgency doesn't exist, but if
right.
I feel an emotional urgency, I most likely need to take a pause. It's so that's important to me. It's kind of funny. I'll just little side story. Often the biggest trigger for me in conflict is when I say my piece and I'm met with silence, and I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. And that's what actually makes me really freak out. I'm like, I'm trying to be healthy. I'm trying to do all these things. Anyway, that's a work in progress, and for episode or part two. But I think the other thing is that looking, I think something that's really served me is, especially in managing staff. I've been in a manager position most of my career wherever I've been. Um, what is the thing? I think when I think about conflict, I think of leaning in for understanding.
Mhm.
And I might not have the same understanding. I might not have the same outlook, and we might not even be able to go the way that they wanted to go, right? Because again, I think especially in a managerial position, right? Like sometimes I had to hear things and I wanted to understand, but I couldn't always give them what they wanted, you know?
Yeah.
But I think even in my personal relationships, like those that are close to me, when I can drop the ego and when I can kind of settle into a heart space, I want to understand. I don't want to be right.
Mhm.
I don't want to be I don't need to win, the conflict. I want to understand because that's at the best interest of everybody involved, and like how do we move forward with that? So I think that's what I'd say is like lean in for the understanding. Like I know that our ego is going to get loud and it's going to be like I want to be right and but there's so much more there. And I think when we can stay in that space, we really deepen a connection versus it could be an explosion, could be an avoidance, could be a total like dissolving of what was, you know? So yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. Yeah, that stays with me.
Yeah, I thank you for sharing that. That was, I think, really like really well put, I think, actually. Like as I was listening, I was like so captivated by the conversation. Um
Yeah, what about you?
yeah, for me it's funny because if mine is to remind myself that I'm not always going to be right. Because that is something that has been important to me and still is important to me sometimes. Like I do have, I think it comes from, this place of like um being told that I was wrong, or
Mm,
like these messages that we receive, and then it becomes an internal dialogue, right? So that has been a really loud voice like in my mind, body, and soul that I've had to like kind of like try to acknowledge but really quiet it down a little bit about being right. Because it's, yeah, my therapist can attest to that. Like it's one of the things we talk about lots, right? Is this like desire of like being right. So yeah, I think that's it. Is like for me to remind myself that it's not about being right. Like you said, it's not about winning the situation. And something else, actually an elder shared with me one time about conflict, that's really always stuck with me and it's been really meaningful, is like that it's never like if we have a disagreement or if we're having, a conflict or whatever, it's not serious and doesn't mean we're incompatible, but if we're having, sorry, Webster, but if we're having a disagreement, it's like you and I against the thing versus me against you, right? Like it's not like us against each
right.
other, it's like us against that thing, and we
The
have to
issue.
solve this issue. Yeah, exactly, right? So that's also been kind of like something that I kind of fall back on when I think about this is getting really hard. My ego is coming out, wants to be right. I want to win. Getting my boxing gloves, thinking I'm like Tyson, like, like just doing that kind of thing. Anyway, so that's, yeah, I guess something that I would, yeah, I think is helpful or meaningful.
Yeah, that is definitely meaningful. And I've heard that before too. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's not me against you. It's me and you against the issue.
Yeah.
And what a dynamic shift that is, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And leaning more into our own truths, right? Instead of trying to convince others that it should also be
Be
theirs.
theirs.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so yeah, again, lots of appreciation for this space, this conversation, and to all of you who are tuning in and letting us know what resonates for you and what you'd like to hear us talk about. And it is really cool actually to just have this space, and I look forward to, I guess, finding ways for us to grow and to keep learning. So with that, we are so grateful for the likes, shares, comments, subscriptions, all of those things. So if you want to keep doing that, that would mean a lot to us.
Yes.
Um, and if you're currently navigating conflict, or you've got some lessons that you've learned from past conflicts, like, we'd also really love to hear that from you too. Um, so until next time, stay soulful, everyone.
Thanks for tuning into Soulful. We hope you found something meaningful to carry with you on your journey. And if you enjoyed today's episode and want to show your support, we invite you to subscribe, share the podcast, and leave a review wherever you listen.
And if you're eager for more, you can connect with us on Instagram and Facebook at Soulful the Podcast for additional content and updates. Until next time, stay soulful.